What's going on, Orange Nation? This is Neil Adler with another episode of Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network, coming to you live from Nashville, Tennessee. Been with my son this weekend, so that was awesome. What wasn't awesome is that Syracuse lost its second game in a row, Syracuse football, that is. And that's the first time under Fran Brown the team has lost consecutive games. And oh, by the way, I hope everyone had a great weekend other than the Syracuse game. And I guess my main takeaway is this. Ricky Collins definitely struggled again, and we'll get to that. But this team just can't seem to put it all together. And granted, they had the win over Clemson, and maybe that win will keep looking better and better because Clemson crushed North Carolina on the road in Week 6 on Saturday. Bill Belichick's team is not good. Um, so that win for Syracuse wasn't bad, but the last 2 weeks they just have not looked good. And certainly in the blowout loss to Duke at the Dome, the offense struggled. They couldn't get any points, and the defense struggled. And even though SMU on Saturday at home in Dallas put up 31 points, it was a 31-18 win for the Mustangs over Syracuse. I think the defense actually played better. I really do. They had a ton of tackles for loss. Um, they're on the field a lot because Syracuse was up until the fourth quarter was struggling to score on offense. And, there were certain guys individually that played well on the defense. And I'm not saying they were amazing because they still gave up 31 points, but, Syracuse was pretty good against the run. SMU has a good passing attack that showed in instances, but it's just Syracuse just they were down 31-3. They did get two touchdowns and a safety in the fourth quarter to make it 31-18, but you can't have all these, situations where you're right near the end zone and you can't punch it in. And then, I credit Fran Brown, at least in certain circumstances, for going for it on like a 4th and 1, or excuse me, like a 4th and goal from right outside the end zone. But if you can't punch it in, I don't know. Maybe sometimes you take the points. I'm not questioning Fran's play calling. The team just doesn't execute well. Certainly Jack Stonehouse is a good punter, and the kicking game is not like bad or anything. It just doesn't like stand out, but the offense and the defense just cannot week to week. And certainly with Ricky Collins, he's struggling. And the run game wasn't good. I mean, what did the Quint average? Like 3 yards a carry? That ain't going to get it done. And SMU really hadn't been good coming into the season. They were 2-2, but didn't have really any impressive wins. They did make the playoff last year and were thought to be a top three team in the ACC, and they were a huge betting favorite, and it showed. Actually, Syracuse ended up covering the spread. But it was disappointing from the standpoint that I didn't think Syracuse was going to win. I think last week on Syracuse Central, I picked them to lose like I don't know if it was 31-20. It doesn't really matter at this point, but it's just it's a bummer because the Tennessee loss was understandable. First week, Tennessee's a ranked team. It's in Atlanta. Steve Angeli just settling in. And yeah, they escaped UConn, but they won the game. And UConn, we'll see what their season ends up like. But then they go and beat Clemson, so that kind of gets our hopes up. And then they just throw up these duds the last 2 weeks. And, they've got a bye week coming up, and then they play Pittsburgh at home. They've got some winnable games. They get North Carolina on Halloween. North Carolina stinks, but they have to go to Georgia Tech. They have to go to Miami, which is clearly the best team in the ACC. Um, they got BC at Notre Dame. I mean, I think it's going to be a real struggle for Syracuse to get to a bowl game. I'm not saying the season's over. I'm not like proclaiming wave the throw in the towel, wave the white flag, because maybe with this bye week coming up, they can work on some things and Ricky can get going a bit and they can work on things on defense. They just got to put it all together. And for me, there's no moral victories in like losing close, but if they could play some better football, even with these tougher games coming up, get to 6 or 7 wins. You assume Angeli will be back next year, healthy. We'll see what happens. But of course, it's disappointing. I mean, they lost pretty big. They, ended up looking closer because they scored points in the fourth quarter. Let's see, 15 points in the fourth quarter. Okay, but still, I mean, 31-18. So they've got 21 points over the last two games, 10.5 points per game. That sucks. That ain't going to get anything done. And it's not just on Ricky Collins because, like I said, the run game wasn't very good. And but I mean, he and I came to his defense after the Duke loss because I said, first of all, it's his first career start. He's coming in. He is third year in college and he's barely played. And it's not the easy situation. But the defense stunk against Duke. The defense was better this time around. Not great, but better. And Ricky didn't get it done. And the offense didn't get it done, except until that fourth quarter where they got 15 points. So, they got this bye week coming up. I think it comes at a good time, having lost two in a row, to be at 3-3, 1-2 in the conference, and they can regroup. And we'll see how the rest of the season goes. All right, let's move on to some wide receiver stuff. So Justice Ross Simmons um, missed the second half of the game against SMU on the weekend. He had his ankle injury. He was on crutches at one point. And he came into this game leading Syracuse in receiving touchdowns. Um, and we'll see what happens. But, he's certainly one of their better wide receivers. Some of the freshmen or redshirt freshmen, actually, Darian Williams is a freshman, a local guy from CVA in Syracuse, and Jalen Horsby is a redshirt freshman, but they seem to be getting some more touches or at least some more field time. But they've got a deep wide receiver room with Ross Simmons and Jonte Cook and Daryl Gill and others, and Bellari, who I think is one of the best tight ends in the country and is still underutilized in my opinion. So we'll see what happens with JRS long term, but you certainly he's again was leading the team in receiving touchdowns, not yards. Um, we'll see what happens. You know, they have a bye week coming up, so assumably if it's not like something crazy serious where he's going to be out for the season, he's got time to rest up. And so we obviously wish him well. So this other story, I ain't gonna lie, it kind of pissed me off. So the uncle of Jonte Cook's the junior wide receiver for Syracuse. He transferred in from Texas by way of Washington. Was a five-star prep recruit, tons of talent, and he's had some good games this year. I think he had like 82 yards against SMU. But his uncle, David Cook, was on the radio up in Syracuse. I didn't hear it live, but I saw a bunch of news reports on it. And what he said, a lot of it isn't, I don't necessarily disagree with. I just don't like him doing that on the air. I thought it was in poor taste. Let me know what you think. Drop me some comments. But here, let me get the notes right. Some of the quotes here. From what I've seen, that was some high school football. My nephew is a five-star wide receiver from the SEC. He got three-star quarterbacks covering him from the ACC, and they can't get him the ball. I'm the reason he went to Texas, and I'm going to get on the phone with his father and see what we can do. We can't let Ricky ruin our chances to get to the league. That boy is not ready for a number one spot. And he goes on and on and on. And look, based on these last two games, I agree with David Cook that Ricky might not be ready for the number one spot. I just think it's some really poor taste. And I would say this to David. I would be like, dude, I agree with some of your points, but really, man, you're going to go on the air and say that up in Syracuse, create more like tension. Like, Ricky's trying his best. If he's not the guy, then we'll see what happens the rest of the year. And maybe Fran Brand, and I'll get to this next. Maybe he'll try Luke Carney out or something. I don't know, man. It just looks some really bad taste. And he's, like pumping himself up and, oh, he's from the SEC and he's got these three-star cornerbacks like from the ACC, basically, from my perspective, like insinuating that like the ACC sucks. And granted, the ACC is not the SEC, but like it just left a sour. When I read that stuff, I was like, really, man? Like, shut up. Like, no offense. I get that's your nephew and that's family and you want him to get to the NFL. And I get all that context. You really need to do that publicly? Really? On the air in Syracuse? Another quote here. I've seen the practice tapes. Okay, maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. My brother sent me the practice tapes. I've seen what he's doing in practice, meaning Ricky Collins. Starters are built in practice, and that boy sucked in practice. Again, he might be right, but like, there's a time and a place for that. I don't know. I'm just big on like character and integrity. And I get if he's frustrated. And Syracuse, the fan base is frustrated. I'm frustrated. Ricky Collins is frustrated. Fran Brown is frustrated. We're all freaking frustrated. But don't do that crap in public. That just really left a bad taste in my mouth. And like to be fair, Jonte Cook was a five-star prep recruit, but he played some at Texas, not a ton, and then he was at Washington like barely. So he's been around like, and he's really talented, and he's had some good games for Syracuse. But I did not like that. I thought it was in poor taste, and I would tell David that. So we'll move on from there. We'll move to Ricky and the quarterback situation. Like I don't know, man. Like he's not been good. He's again, I don't want to be an armchair quarterback. I am not a college football coach. I did not play quarterback in high school or anywhere, but I cover the sport, and so I'm giving my opinion here. He just looks like he's telegraphing some of his passes, like he's staring down the receiver. He's making some bad decisions, or making them too quickly, or just like just not. It just doesn't seem like he's in rhythm. I mean, he has an arm. The dude has a cannon. He can run, and has shown that he can, get first downs or make long runs, like if the pocket collapses or whatever. But like, it's just not all there yet, and maybe it will be. Again, he was a four-star prep recruit. He went to LSU in the SEC. He was mentored by Jaden Daniels, who won a Heisman Trophy and plays for one of my hometown teams now, the Washington Commanders. But he's just not there, man. He's got like 600 plus yards passing, three touchdowns, five picks, and he's just I don't know. There's a lot of fans, calling for Fran Brown to give Luke Carney, who I sounds like is the primary backup. He got into the Colgate game, had one run for 9 yards, and it was a touchdown, but he's never thrown a pass in college. He's a true freshman. He had an insane career for a Dallas prep school, won titles, and just threw for like a billion yards. And then you've got the redshirt freshman Jakari Williams and the other freshman Rich Bellin. Like I don't know. I don't know. I mean, again, they've got this bye week coming up, and then they've got Pittsburgh at home. Pittsburgh just throttled Boston College, but I don't think I don't think Pittsburgh's a great team. But people are saying give Luke Carney a chance. If this is a developmental year, do we give Luke Carney a chance? I mean, to be fair, Fran Brown plays other true freshmen in other positions. Antoine Delaurier at linebacker, two-way player Dimitri Samuels starts at corner and is also, well, he's caught like one pass, but he's a wide receiver too. He's just, I don't know. Granted, the quarterback position is the most important position in football, and so this isn't, an easy decision for Fran Brown. I don't know how I feel. I'll be curious what he says. I mean, this week in terms of potentially making a move. If Syracuse these last two games with Ricky as QB1 had lost like relatively close games, and he didn't throw so many interceptions, and his completion percentage wasn't bad against Duke, but it was either under, it was right near 500 or under 500 against SMU on the road. And also as context, which I've talked about on Syracuse Central, SMU does not or did not have a good pass defense coming into this game. So I don't know. Like part of me is like, okay, give Luke Carney a chance. What's the worst can happen? They'll keep losing. But again, Ricky Collins, this is his third year in college. Even though he didn't have barely, I think there were a handful of passes his first 2 years at LSU. He's still more of a veteran player. Um, but he's just got to make better reads and better decisions, and obviously be more consistent and punch the ball in from right outside the goal line. Although they weren't always his fault, other guys got stuff too. But they gotta convert better in the red zone. I'm still of the mindset, Jonte Cook's uncle brought up practice and all that. I would say if I were Fran Brown, given they've got this bye week coming up, let's see how Ricky Collins practices. If he's seems like he's practicing well and kind of, I know he'll be in good spirits and he has confidence and he's a good leader and he seems like a good dude. He's got character. But if he's practicing well, I say you run with him again. But if you're just not sure, I guess now would be the time if you're going to make a change to try that Luke Carney, try it now because again, they have a bye week, so they got more practices, and then they don't have a game of the weekend. They have to travel, and then they got Pittsburgh at home. What do you think? Drop me some comments. All right, we're gonna wrap up here with my favorite story to cover, Calvin Russell, baby. So, so Calvin Russell, the five-star wide receiver in the 2026 class, verbally committed to Syracuse, plays for Miami Northwestern Senior High School, which won a state chip last year. He verbally committed to Syracuse in early July over other finalists, Florida State, Oregon, and Michigan. Um, this fall, analysts frequently talk about how he's a flip target to not necessarily one of those other three schools, but to Miami because he's from Miami. One of his best friends plays in Miami. He's got family connections there. It's his hometown team. He's been on a couple game day visits, but he said it's because of he's seeing his friend play. But there's still chatter and how could he be stay committed to Syracuse because it's Syracuse, which I think is all BS. But anyway, so he took to Instagram. He did an Instagram story post, so it obviously came in and went. I did take a picture of it, but it basically was like it said can't in quotes can't wait to get there, and then it was a graphic of him, Fran Brown out of the Orange. Yeah. So does that mean he's 100% committed and there'll be no more flip talk and he's signing in December and enrolling in January, which is what I've been told he might do? I hope so. I mean, you never know with this stuff. It's recruiting. But to me, it's like I see that and I hope analysts see that. And I rely on analysts for stories and on a national scale, they have more intel than me. I might have more intel on Syracuse because that's my gig, but it would be nice if they see this and stop with it because it's annoying. He literally just said, "Can't wait to get there," to Syracuse. And the reason he committed to Syracuse, and I know he's got reportedly got an NIL deal and other stuff that I don't necessarily know about. But the reason he committed to Syracuse is because him and his family are closest with Fran Brown more than any other college coach. And so unless Fran Brown leaves, I've said all along, regardless of game day visits or other crap out there, chatter out there, buzz, that he's coming to Syracuse. And this Instagram post, I think, puts a stamp on that. We'll see. He did visit Syracuse for the Duke game. Mike McAllister of 24/7 Sports reported that first. I confirmed it with a source before the visit. He can still take, I believe that was an unofficial visit. And if that was the case, he can still take an official visit to Syracuse if he wants to this fall. So I'll leave it at that. Honestly, I don't like to be too mean on this show, but if I do continue to see analysts calling for or writing about Calvin being like a significant flip target to Miami or any other school, I'm gonna put on social media. I'm gonna put a picture that picture. I'm gonna like reply to it. I'm gonna put that graphic because they probably didn't see it or they don't care or they don't believe it. But Calvin put it up there, so I believe him. And I'm not trying to make anyone look stupid, but yeah, maybe just a little bit. All right, that's today's show. I hope everyone has a great Monday and had a great weekend. Again, tough loss for Syracuse, but still got half the season left. If they can turn things around, get the defense playing more consistently, get that run game going, and get the quarterback situation a little more stable, I still think 6-6 is on the cards. And if who knows, 7-5. But we just want to have some positive momentum. It's not even just about wins and losses. It is about wins and losses, but it's about momentum and just feeling good about the program. So let me know what you liked and didn't like about today's episode, what you want to hear about, what you want to see. This is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you again on Tuesday, friends. Take care.